Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of the Weekly Chat between myself and my good friend and ex-colleague, Ralph Hebgen, the legendary.
You clearly haven't known very much.
No, I don't
There's
know.
a mystery.
Who is this guy? The legendary former equity research analyst. Today, we're going to be talking about three things. Firstly, we're going to be talking about AI regulation. Secondly, we're going to be talking about Twitter developments. And thirdly, we're going to be talking about crypto's ongoing strength and prospects. So, with regard to the first one, AI regulation, I just thought it was very interesting to see this week that we've seen. Well, there's two major things. One is that Biden's administration is calling for and looking at potentially some kind of rules to govern AI, because as everyone knows, it just, the developments just keep happening, coming thick and fast, and it is looking increasingly tricky. And I think the longer regulation is left to one side, the more nefarious purposes can be, or instances of nefarious use will come to light. So I think that was interesting from Biden, but also in China they are looking at this very closely as well, and probably going a bit further in that at the moment. So, we have talked about it before. We have said that regulation is needed, but it does seem that actually something is being done about it at the moment. But what do you think, Ralph?
Yes, absolutely. I actually think that this is a bit more of a grave subject. It's actually serious to talk about this, because we need this regulation to emerge. As we have been talking about AI recently many times on this podcast, I think everybody knows by now that I like tech and that I embrace, in general, the benefits that technologies bring potentially to societies. But of course, and there are always risks. So you can say this about every technology. If I have a hammer, I can use it to hammer the nail into the wall. I can use it to kill somebody. But the obvious way in which this analogy doesn't work, and indeed is trite, is because artificial intelligence has a potential to change societies in ways which we have never seen before. Not even in the Industrial Revolution. I would actually go as far to say that we have never seen anything like this before. And what humanity is doing here is basically, I believe, creating the first alien intelligence with which humanity will potentially beneficially interact, but with which humanity also will not know exactly how to interact. So let us not pretend that this is a technology which we can sort of compare with other technologies which have gone before. So that's the first slightly gloomy statement which I would like to make.
Delivered in such a cheerful way, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the sun is actually it's not. No, it's sort of starting to rain. Excellent. This is going to help my mood.
Awesome,
I'm going to be even worse now. So the next point is I'd just like to create a little bit of context, and this is context which we all know about, and it's social media. Now, social media, when they started up, nobody saw the harm in this, and I will not actually go on record in saying that social media are necessarily always harmful, but nobody even saw the potential for harm. Everybody interacted. It was sort of engagement maximization which was on the cards. And yes, of course, this is cool, and we have a lot better way in which to keep track of friends, find new friends, old friends again, etc. I've done this through social media, and it's brilliant, no question about it. But as the platforms became more further reaching in terms of the just the amount of users which were on the various platforms. What also unfortunately happened is that, just as it is true for society without the tech, sort of echo chambers started to appear, groups were beginning to congregate, which perhaps harbored slightly less mainstream interests, and that would normally also have happened in society, but social media amplified and accelerated these capabilities. And so what you had, and we all know this is true, after just about barely a decade of development of these services, we have things like doom scrolling, child sexualization, cult groups, conspiracy theorists, QAnon, and other things. And all of this is, of course, harmful to societies. And I would argue that there is a clear corrosive impact which social media has had on societies. Now, and we sort of all know by our own experience, I think. If you go on Twitter, I mean, you can't actually have a conversation with somebody which lasts for more than 3 like tweets before the person tells you that you're stupid or exchanges some other florid insult. and of course, to me, this doesn't matter, but there are people who are more vulnerable, children, youngsters, vulnerable people in general, and you do have this acceleration of unpleasant interactions, which can and have led to a diminution of mental health. So this we have allowed to develop in an unregulated way, largely unregulated. There are prominent proponents of free speech. Elon Musk is one of them, unfortunately. And, well, not unfortunately because I don't like Elon Musk. I mean, you know my attitude. I think he's a great genius, but I wouldn't necessarily look to Elon Musk as the oracle of wisdom or dispenser of ethical restraint necessarily. Although he also flip-flops between what he thinks is ethical and what he doesn't. But so all of this has led to this situation. It is largely unregulated. And what I think is happening now is that with the exponential growth of AI capabilities, we're moving into the second phase of this, if it can be called the second phase. And I think we must not actually make what I do see as a mistake, again, that we allow AI capabilities of this magnitude to develop unchallenged, unregulated, and put the capability of AI into the hands of largely sort of untrained individuals or worse, trained individuals who can use this for nefarious purposes. So my next comment in this would be to say, well, it would be a sort of normal response to this to say, oh, Ralph, yeah, but what's exactly nefarious in this? I mean, where's the harm? And just to illustrate what AI is able to do now, and this is currently possible, this is not science fiction. I can, if I have access to the code of a Wi-Fi router, I can put the Wi-Fi router code into GPT-4. I can ask the system to find vulnerabilities in the code, and I can then ask GPT-4 to write me a script that exploits the vulnerabilities of this code. Now, I haven't done this because I am not knowledgeable enough, but people testing GPT-4's capabilities have done it, and it works. So all you need is access to somebody's Wi-Fi router's code. This can be obtained, and there is an obvious way in which even moderately trained people who do not know how to write code themselves can get GPT-4 to write you code which you can then use to exploit vulnerabilities of the system. So that's one way in which this can be done, and this is something which is sort of not, I think, generally known. Another thing which I recently found out about, which has actually shocked me to the core, I have to say. People have been put into MRI machines, and then the various ways in which the brain lights up are recorded. They have then been asked what they have been thinking about. Let's say that's a giraffe or something, or a zebra. And
I often find myself thinking about those, but yeah.
I think more about zebras than giraffes, mostly.
Really?
Is that the same for you?
No, I think I'm more. Yeah. But anyway, carry on. Yeah.
You're more of a giraffe.
I'm more of a giraffe kind of guy. Yeah, more of a giraffe. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think that's why we get on, right? I mean, we're opposites, in that sense. I mean,
yeah. I also don't have no idea where this conversation is going to go. I think our chat should be regulated.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. Yes, that's right. Yes.
Excellent. So anyway, and the AI mapped what people told it they were thinking about to the dynamics, to the pictures of the lit up brain stem and brain, which were accessible through the MRI. And then the AI was asked to do it in reverse.
Yeah.
People were put into MRI machines. They were thinking of something. The AI was only able to see the imagery of the brain, and they were asked to re-engineer what the person was thinking about. And they did, and they got it right. The AI said this person was thinking of a giraffe. That was probably you in the tube.
Yeah.
And the person said, that's correct, I was thinking of a giraffe. So, I mean, if that is not scary to anybody, you weren't listening to this. I mean, I'm not saying that this is now possible, that you can put an AI into a Boston Dynamics robot and the robots walk around and read your mind. Of course, that's not possible, but that this is theoretically possible in a controlled environment does show you the immense power of artificial intelligence. And so all of this I have now said, and this is all of this is just to create a background of I think, maybe highlighting why this technology needs to be regulated. I'm not a technophobe. I want this regulated in the same way as I want pharma products to be regulated, or in which I want restriction of access to military-grade weapons to exist. And all of this does exist. And I think we take this absolutely for granted, and nobody is going to shout, nobody outside of the USA is going to shout, "Ooh, I can't buy a fully automatic weapon. This is terrible." And it basically curtails my right as a human being. So I believe that this is important. I also now think that, thankfully, regulators and governments all around the world are waking up to this threat, or are furthering their insight into the capabilities of AI, and the input of the Biden administration is, I think, welcome. There is going to be an input from the EU, an AI law. It's not going to be a law until it is translated into national law, of course, but let's call it an EU AI law, is going to be revealed or released very soon indeed. And the final point, that is to your point, is China is sort of clamping down on these things as well. And this is interesting that they do this. They do this for a different reason. They do this because they know full well that this technology, once released to the general public, cannot be controlled. And China is, of course, not going to allow something that they cannot control to basically disseminate itself freely amongst users. What if the AI starts talking about Tiananmen Square or other atrocities, which it will do, and that is something which therefore is almost by the nature of China's governmental philosophy, they are going to clamp down on precisely these capabilities, which in the democracies of the free world we have to responsibly regulate in a different way. And so I think, sorry, that was a longer answer than anybody expected, but I thought I'd create a little bit of an environment why I think regulation of AI is necessary. And we need to do it now because we are already on the exponential curve of this development. And if we don't do it now, then it might actually be, well, I don't want to be doom mongering myself, but it is required to act now in order to regulate this technology responsibly, so that I can make sure that that it's going to be a net benefit to society, which is going to emerge from it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, I mean, I've said probably on I've forgotten whether I've said it on this podcast, but I've definitely said it on podcast that, it needs to be, there need to be some sort of international guidelines that apply everywhere because of the lack of boundaries that AI has, or general lack of boundaries, because actually I think ChatGPT is banned in China, for instance. So there need to be some internationally recognized standards. And I think then you have to then have individual country standards to satisfy everyone. And so I think that I do think that needs to happen. I don't want it to just be the Americans just dictating to everyone what they should do. I think it would be good if everyone managed to come together and form this, kind of big group. But anyway, obviously, that sounds like we're a long way away from it. But having said that, when you've got Biden and, the Chinese government waking up to it and either doing something about it now, which is what the Chinese government has done, or Biden suggesting things and then putting it out to sort of for public scrutiny and potentially receive other alternative, advice. I think this is, we are coming to as you have said, we are coming to that realization, but they really need to stop. They need to get something done as soon as possible, and it needs to be accelerated because otherwise, the prospects for crime and stuff are just absolutely enormous.
Enormous, absolutely. But and I think it is being done because just recently, in the space of 2 weeks, we have seen the emergence of the open letter, the AI open letter, which we've discussed last episode, where people are basically calling now for a pause of developments. And when I say people, these are all people who are working in the field, academics or founders of companies. We've seen Biden. We have the EU AI law coming, and the chorus of voices from inside the AI community that are calling for regulation is growing every week. And I believe because of that, hopefully we will be able to come up with effective regulation. It's going to be a very difficult thing to do because you don't want to choke off the possibilities of this technology, but of course you have to do something. And so people are talking about a sort of AI constitution, and I think constitution is an interesting word in this context, because if you remember when the sort of nation states were giving themselves constitutions, like France after the French Revolution, then the US, which was modeled on that constitution, and then Germany in the Grundgesetz. Now, all of these fundamental assertions of rights were difficult to draft, but once drafted, have actually served as a useful regulator, a general regulator of what human rights in a particular territory are defined to be. And I think the same will be possible to do with AI.
Absolutely. So anyway, I think this is going to continue. I'm very interested in seeing what the developments are going to be and how quickly they're brought in, because I don't think it can be quick enough. Anyway, let's go on to the next topic, which is, of course, Twitter. Now, it was very interesting to see this week that Twitter changed its name. Well, it's not changed its name. From our point of view, it's the same. So they're keeping Twitter branding and stuff like that. You're not going to see, as far as I know, a change in the logo or anything like that. But it has basically, changed sort of registration. It's changed its domicile as well, which, I guess they're technical changes. But the reason why this is kind of important is because it suggests that Twitter is now having gone through the spring cleaning kind of stage and cutting the number of employees, I think in half. I think the next stage of Twitter's potential transformation is, it looks like it's going towards Elon Musk's dream plan to go towards becoming an everything app, like, for instance, WeChat is in China, where everyone is in kind of a walled garden and they do many different services within that because it's very easy and convenient. Now, I've definitely said before that I think that an everything app in the West is actually going to be much more problematic, because I think everything apps in China have become what they've become because China just wanted to encourage growth. And so, certain things were overlooked, or the priorities, ethics and stuff may have been put aside, or minimized in preference for growth. So anyway, I think that in China there have been some very special circumstances that have allowed this expansion to continue, which I don't think are available in the West. For instance, I think that before they got to that stage, there'd be some sort of competition, body trying to look at what they do, looking at their power in the market and all that kind of thing. So I've been skeptical about it, but it does sound like Twitter is moving towards this. And one of the other things that that actually feeds into this quite nicely is the fact that it has announced a tie-up with the online trading group eToro. Now, the idea is that from this week, Twitter users have been able to click through on crypto, stocks, and other assets on eToro, and then so that's that's what they've that's what they've decided to do, and I think this could be quite interesting because Twitter could act as the enabler. So it doesn't, if it makes sure that it is not the one that does this, and let's say gets eToro on and touts itself as a trading platform, I wonder whether it can get away with not having to satisfy as many regulators. It could just say, look, we provide the space and the reach and the platform, they provide the stuff. So if you want to regulate anyone, regulate them. And then, okay, you might not get as much money for it, but you minimize the risk enormously. So anyway, so I thought it was interesting that that it's changed its name, it's X Corp, and it's moved to Delaware. In themselves are not that impressive, but when you consider what, like this initial tie-up, there's quite a lot of potential for Twitter to be becoming a portal for some very interesting services. But what do you think, Ralph?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I follow Twitter with some with a lot of interest, because I still wonder why Elon Musk actually bought it. But it's almost like he thought, yeah, of course. I mean, eventually he had to, but originally it was. It was almost like I'm a champion of free speech. I'm going to buy Twitter because it's going to be cool. And then I'm going to be the free speech guy. And now I have it. And oops, what am I going to do with it? I go bankrupt. This is not good. Now I'm not the richest man in the universe anymore. I know, I'm going to do like a everything app. Now, this is probably an unkind type of analysis. I'm sure it wasn't like that. But it has been mooted that Elon kind of ended up with Twitter and then needed to do something novel with it in order to bring it to higher levels of profitability. And as we discussed, perhaps the Chinese idea of an everything app doesn't work so well in Europe, and maybe this is not the harbinger of what he did here. The tie-up with eToro is not going to be the first shot towards a everything app, but it is interesting nonetheless to see this, because Twitter clearly is a huge platform. It's like if you think about this as a funnel, it's lots and lots of people chatting all the time, and if these people all of a sudden now have access to a trading platform, then they might more easily be thinking of trading crypto or some other form of asset on that platform than they would otherwise have done. So from eToro's point of view, I can see how this would be profitable, and of course from Twitter's platform as well. Now, the thing which goes through my mind is the sort of mindset that the sort of user mindset which you have when you're communicating on Twitter. It's sort of a short concentration span type of mindset. You tweet this here and then to the other geezer you follow, etc. And this is all good. I mean, it still keeps you on the platform for 2 hours, but it is not a sort of considered 2 hour conversation which you have with somebody. You have short-term interactions. And so I wonder whether that short-term interactive mindset is going to be brought to eToro, where a similar short-term interactive mindset, I can see the risks here. You know, it's just like you tweet this to this guy, you talk about crypto, you think, oh yeah, might as well buy some crypto, like click on a eToro button perhaps, which is going to be on Twitter. And then you just trade $100 here, $100 there. And so I wonder what that is going to do, unintended consequences. So in a first instance, yes, I can see how a type of this nature is going to enhance the revenues of both platforms. But in the second aspect, I do wonder what this is going to do to the frequency of small amount trades on eToro, and whether this is going to be positive or not. And again, regulators are, but to your point of regulation, actually two things here. To the point of regulation, yes, eToro is regulated already as a trader, so there doesn't have to be anything in addition. But what I do always wonder about tie-ups of this nature is well, in America they call it antitrust. In the UK we call it anti-competition or monopolies impact. And so you wonder what the regulator is going to say to this capability, and whether it's going to pass muster or not.
I mean, mind you though, like I say, I mean, in a way, it depends how it's all structured. But I would have thought the beauty of what Twitter might be able to do is to just say, look, we're providing the platform, you're providing and are responsible for the content. I mean, as long as they make sure that they're not just, you know, inviting some tin pot operation on there to do trading, as long as it's regulated and it's had a decent track, or like it's been around for a while and that sort of thing, then that's maybe where their liability stops. You know, whether or not people become addicted to trading using money that they can't afford, that's eToro's problem, right? Because that's a whole, you know, with Robin Hood and everything getting in trouble because of the gamification of trading. You know, things like if you got performance, you'd get like a, confetti coming down and champagne corks popping on your phone, and you'd be like, hey, it's brilliant. Although I have to say,
it's like an Instagram chat.
Yes, exactly. Although I would say on in Watson's Daily, if anyone, any of you who,
if
any of you even in Watson's Daily, I've got built in there a capability where when you read Watson's Daily, it obviously you have to log in, and it will give you a record of what you have done. So the idea, there is a calendar function in there. You can have a look, and it shows you what you've read, and then you get points for the more things you do. The more quizzes, the things you read, and you get you get belts. I know this sounds, but I used to be a judo guy. That was my main sport, and I thought rather than getting cups and medals, which I think everyone does, I thought it'd be quite fun to do judo belts. So basically you go up the levels. When you go up and you get a new belt, you get like a celebration thing. So I know I am guilty myself of gamification, but it's for the sake of education. But in this case,
it's for the kids.
Yeah, it's for the kids. It's for the kids. But no, I think the gamification of trading and stuff, I think that it can be damaging because it is designed to be designed to be addictive. Like I say, I would have thought they could just say, look, we're the platform. Yes, we've made sure that they're regulated by the FCA. So boom, we're fine. It's up to them as to what they do. And if they get in trouble, we'll just pick someone else.
Absolutely, it's not that level of regulation which I had in mind.
Yeah.
It's more the regulation which will perhaps be necessary to look at what may well be a new market springing up here in the world of tech, which is the sort of combination or collaboration between one tech platform and another. And like I said, unintended consequences, what is going to happen. The other thing which I just wanted to mention in this context is I think, I need to sort of coin a word for this quickly. It's almost like multi-user properties or something. I mean, if you go on Twitter, you can now click through to eToro and trade a quick $100 crypto or something. That, I think, is possibly the way of the future in which various tech platforms are going to not blend, but combine. And the reason that I say that is that there's going to be competition again from GPT-4 or OpenAI, let's say. That's the company which owns it. Because the next rollout of GPT-4 is going to offer plugins to other platforms. So you're going to have various buttons on your GPT-4, on your GPT surface. And for example, one is to Wolfram Alpha, the computation engine. Another one will be OpenTable, the booking platform for restaurants, etc. And then you can, for example, do the following. You can basically say, okay, I want to have dinner with my girlfriend. I don't want to spend more than £100 because I'm a cheap date. And I wanted to be within like 10 miles of my home because again, I can't be asked to walk too far.
Yeah. You sounded very, very dreamy, I have to say.
Yeah, totally. I'm a total romantic.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I don't want to spend much money. I'm just gonna. I don't want to go very far because I hate the lights, and I don't like exercise. But anyway, go on.
And I want my girlfriend to think that I did it all on my own.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, nice.
So I'm going to take all the credit. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT this, and then because of the plugins, ChatGPT will be able to, first of all, scan the internet, use Google Maps or whatever to calculate the distance, use Wolfram Alpha to have the computational power to calculate the bill, use OpenTable to see what availability there is, and then it's going to give you 5 different scenarios. You click one, and if you give the app the permission to actually book it, then you can just basically say, well, book it all up and send me the confirmations, and that's it. So that's going to be the next thing, and that's going to be absolutely enabling to so many people. I mean, it's basically having your personal assistant or your concierge service on your mobile, and this is where I'm making the point now, going back to Twitter and eToro. That also is a multi-property, a multi. It's sort of what the free world version of a China app for everything might turn out to be. It is plugins and it is tie-ups between one platform such as Twitter and eToro. And it will be interesting to see where in this new market who's going to come out tops.
Yeah.
There's going to be a new competitive landscape, and let's just see how it turns out.
Absolutely. Actually, while you were saying that, I was just thinking of a really great name potentially for a concierge type, a AI powered concierge type thing. You could call it concierge, right? With the and then AI.
I see where this is going.
Yeah. That would be great. Anyone wants to do that,
that would be fantastic.
Concierge. Anyway, sorry about that. But yeah, I do think no. But the thing is, it is really good, though, isn't it? That the fact that you're bringing, this is a positive thing. You're bringing together
totally
lots of different elements in a really quick time.
Absolutely.
The problem is, though, is in a way you as that becomes normalised. You kind of think people won't know how to do things, in the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. Do you know how your car works?
No,
for
that's
example?
true, isn't it? Yeah,
I don't know how my PC works. I don't know how anything works, which I'm using every day. And you are right, sure. But also, for example, can I do the square root of 1,200? I can probably do this. It takes me a long time. And is it necessary? No. I can use my pocket calculator to do it. So you might absolutely say that people have lost some ability to do mental arithmetic.
Yeah.
But then again, I would say, yes, there is probably going to be some cognitive diminution from that, but it's outweighed by the enablement which pocket calculators or other things have actually done. And also the other thing is why I'm a real fan of this OpenAI plugin and perhaps also the Twitter eToro link up is it's just going to fuel growth in the economy, because I'm going to go back to the thing which I can envisage more actively, which is the GPT plugin rollout. Can you imagine? You basically want to go on holiday for 7 days in Italy, say, and you just ask GPT-4 to give you certain itineraries, certain scenarios. You'd have to actually research all of this yourself.
Yeah.
Of course, this is doable. It's not a big ask, but it is a little bit of an ask,
Yeah.
And then once you've done it all and you've got the perfect flight and everything, then you discover, oops, unfortunately, the hotel has just been booked and you can start again. So you ask GPT that, it goes into Expedia plugins. All of these plugins are going to be available. And what a shot in the arm to the travel economy, to the to the overall economy, just because it is easier to consume, so to speak. And so I think that's going to be definitely a good thing.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm thinking? I've just, last year I had my first holiday for 10 years. I'm actually, do you know what? After talking to you about this now, I'm actually, the next thing I do in terms of holiday, which I'm not sure what's going to happen this year, but if we do something like that, I'm definitely going to run it past ChatGPT to see what what to do. So it'd be quite interesting to see, I think.
Actually, there's going to be a plugin, and they're going to call it Holiday.
You see, we're getting this, aren't we? Concierge and Holiday. It's just amazing. The possibilities are endless. Oh, dear me. Right. Anyway, so let's talk about the last. Let's talk about the last thing, which is crypto going through $30,000 for no apparent reason, as usual, and no one can explain it not properly, and yet the platforms and stuff continue to fall around our ears or get to get accused of various things. But I mean, first of all, what do you really make of what do you really make of this? So we'll start off with that.
Well, I mean, first of all, normally when we talk about AI, I say I.
Yeah.
And this time, unfortunately, I was too serious to do this, so I'm going to say it now.
Okay.
I.
Good. Nice.
Right. Good. So that's the first comment.
We need to yes.
That's all I got, really.
Okay. But yes, on the crypto front.
Anyway,
yeah.
Okay. Now, crypto, I don't understand crypto as the world knows by now, and I don't really know. I mean, the valuations which people put on it are probably stochastically generated. I have no idea where they come from. But there appears to be a development which I just think is deliciously esoteric. It's nobody knows what that means. It's sort of pushing Bitcoin to move away from something known as proof of work to proof of stake, and the reason for that is that proof of work technology uses up too much electricity. And I don't know whether that's in any way connected. It can't be connected to the recent increase in price, but that's going to be something which is, I think, going to happen. And as a consequence, Bitcoin, which is still sort of, together with Ethereum and some others, the sort of poster child of the cryptocurrency world, is, I think, going to find wider acceptability in terms of the environmental friendliness. And let me just briefly explain what I'm talking about here. This proof of work thing, it's all got to do with the way in which Bitcoin creates security for the blocks. That's where the name blockchain, of course, comes from. It's basically just a selection of trades which are framed with two codes. One code at the top, then you have your transactions, one code comes at the bottom, and that is when a block of transactions is being closed off. A new block is opened. This code appears at the top of the block. You've got transactions, block closed off, and that's how the chain develops. That's what the blockchain is. And this code is, in fact, a 256 letter code. And that just gives rise to an insane amount of ability of possible scenarios, which is in fact 2 to the power of 256. Just to just give you guys an idea of what that completely stupid number that is. There are 2 to the 80 electrons in the universe.
Right.
This number is what is it? 2 to the 170 times the amount of electrons in the universe. It is just impossible to even think about this. So feasibly, this means that you can never just by chance pick that code. And that is what makes the blockchain secure. Now, the proof of work thing is that people always say that mathematical formulae need to be solved. That's not actually really true. I mean, the only thing which is that there's a certain constraint on the syntax. And for example, you say, okay, find me a code which starts with 10 zeros. And that's actually quite rare. So you can calculate the probability of that. And so you need to basically brute force go through each of these various bits and pieces. Finally, you find one. If you are the first person to find one, you put it on the blockchain, and that is proof of work. The proof that you have done the work is awarded by an amount of Bitcoin.
Right.
But in order to go through all the completely stupid but very numerous calculations, you consume a lot of electricity. And that is why proof of work technology consumes lots of electricity. Proof of stake, which I'm not going to explain, takes too long, does not do this. And that is why I think people are pushing Bitcoin towards that. If Bitcoin makes the transition, and I expect it to do so, it is going to become more acceptable because it's obviously less environmentally damaging, given what current electricity prices are. And also it is going to increase the usability, because currently it is actually a punitive exercise in terms of commercial sense to actually go through all these calculations, because you can't be, because the reward you get in terms of Bitcoin is sort of less than the cost of the electricity you expend in looking for the proof of work.
Yeah.
So the outcome of all of this is, I think, going to be that Bitcoin is going to possibly going to represent a more respected form of cryptocurrency, and that is going to support its value. But again, I go back to the start of this. I don't know why Bitcoin, or indeed any other cryptocurrency, trades at any level at any one time.
I mean, maybe. I've no idea of this, but maybe you could almost have like a rebranding of Bitcoin, couldn't you? Like a green Bitcoin or something like, that sort of thing, because
green coin,
call it green coin, because it uses less electricity. You could then, that could then make it more appealing to the mainstream. And this is the whole thing, isn't it? Is that more it becomes closer to the mainstream, but then I suppose then it has to, be subject to regulation. But maybe that could be the thing that really brings Bitcoin to the masses. Is that? I mean, I don't know, but maybe it could do with a bit of a PR
a name change. Yeah, it could model itself under environmental environment. You can call it environment.
I see what you did there. Good. Yeah, good.
Yeah, that wasn't very funny.
No, well, it was marvelous.
Sort of funny.
A solid 5 out of 10, I'd say.
It was okay funny.
So, yeah. So anyway, yes, I think that it is very interesting, that whole kind of potential switch, use of Bitcoin. It could make it more palatable for more people and more funds. So yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just have to see how that one rolls. But anyway, yes. Have you got any other points you'd like to make, Ralph, at all?
No, that's about it. I just think that the current favor in which crypto appears to be in general, not just Bitcoin, is possibly a consequence of the recent sentiment that the banking industry might be a little bit less secure than we have thought it was perhaps a year ago. It's very hard for me to really find reasons why trading in Bitcoin flares up at one point in time and is depressed at another. As I keep saying, to me, currently it's not a store of value yet, because there's no value behind it, no obvious value. There's no actual contracts are traded on the blockchain yet, or not many anyway. So I don't know why it is, but I just thought it was an interesting snippet to see that Bitcoin's technology is going to be dragged into the way into the 21st century, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Right then. Well, I guess we might as well end on that. There's been a lot to think about. I mean, I do think with all this stuff, we follow so many different stories, and just I think it is important, to keep on top of these things. But also, I always say to people that you need to be able to connect all these themes to make it truly useful to you in your daily life, rather than sit back and going, oh, isn't that interesting? But, to try to apply it to you and the things that you're interested in. And obviously, you can't get these things aren't necessarily self-contained. So like I say, it's always good to think in terms of themes, put them together, and then try to come out what you think is a potential outcome. But anyway, thank you very much, Ralph. As always, good fun to chat, and we should be back next week. So thank you very much.
Indeed. Excellent.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.